places in America, over in Europe, England. All those places aren't set up for that type of weather. The frost line in those places are typically, I want to say, 12 to 18 inches, and the pipes aren't buried deep enough to be able to handle an extended freeze. So you could be seeing degradation of things in the very short term here in regards to that, and that's only one event. That's only one thing that could spiral it all down. Then you have our foreign policy, which is a joke, and I don't know. I mean, how do you weather the storm? For example, could you tell our listeners what's your posture? How are you taking all this and the situation, and how are you preparing?
I was a Boy Scout for 12 years and a Scoutmaster for 10 more. And most of my early life was preparing for survival in the wilderness, building shelters, building fires, knowing how to tie knots. And, I mean, that has come in handy many, many times over the course of my life. And at this point in time, I think everybody needs to be looking out for their own preservation and the preservation of their family. So, I mean, I refer to it as grub, gold, and guns. You really do need to have somewhere in the neighborhood of a year to a year and a half supply of food per person for your family. And if you realize that each person needs at least 1 gallon of water per day, it's not likely that you're going to be able to save or store that much water. You'd need your own water tank. So the only other reasonable thing is to have a good filter so that you can take pond water and filter it into drinkable water. You got to have a year to a year and a half supply of food.
Mm-hmm.
You need to. Anybody who doesn't know that the economy is going to crash is really not paying attention. You are so much in denial. If you listen to the mainstream media, they're going to tell you that, the economy is starting to recover. That is complete nonsense. We are going to have a depression that makes the first Great Depression look like a 4th of July picnic. Our unemployment rate is already in the neighborhood of 20%. During the first Great Depression, it maxed out at 25%.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing, my personal estimate, a year from now, it'll be in the neighborhood of 40%. So you're going to have 40% unemployment. Paper money is going to be, you're going to take the paper dollars out to the outhouse and use them there. Anybody who studies history should know the Weimar Republic. On my website, constitutionpreservation.org, you can go to the media link, and I've got a lesson on hyperinflation, and it shows you all of these German denominations up to a 1 billion mark note. That's 1,000 million marks.
I wonder what that bought you back then.
Less than lunch, apparently.
Oh, good Lord.
And I haven't posted it on my website, but a lot of the Patriot rallies, they are now selling souvenirs, which are 1 trillion, and I've been told $10 trillion notes from Zimbabwe. I don't know if their denomination is in dollars, but it's like 10 trillion units of Zimbabwe money. Mm-hmm. And literally, Zimbabwe money is more valuable in the United States as kind of a souvenir, oh my God, look at this kind of an item, than it is in Zimbabwe to buy goods.
That's amazing. Hey, Griff, did you hear himself and family?
I heard that. I immediately locked onto that. Michael, when someone says to you gold is at $1,300 an ounce, how do you grasp that with your mind? What do you think when it's expressed in dollars?
Nothing. I mean, dollars are basically meaningless. So if you and Joe come to my house to play poker, and I bring out the red, white, and blue poker chips, what's the first question you're going to ask me?
Well, what's the value of each one?
Yeah, how much are we playing for? Is this
right.
any nickel dime? Maybe nickel dime quarter? Oh, my God, $1, $5, $10? No alcohol tonight because we're playing real poker. So, you want to know what those poker chips represent. Well, I recognize 1 ounce of gold, and that's all I really care about. What dollar figure you give it is really irrelevant. Whether they label it as $25 on the face value or $500 or $1,000 at the the auction block, it is still 1 ounce of gold. The gold hasn't changed. The only thing that has changed is the value of the money. And this is where people get wrapped around the axle. If I walk into the room with a brick and a ruler, do I announce that this piece of wood is 1 brick long? I mean, you'd look at me and you'd look at each other and go, God, what this guy smoking? He's out of his mind. Obviously, you use the ruler as the standard to measure the length of the brick, not the other way around. Well, wake up, people. We use gold as the standard, and we use that to measure the value, or in this case, lack of value, for the paper money. So if, 200 years ago, you could get an ounce of gold for $25 US, that was the rate, that was the exchange rate. Well, then when it goes to, an ounce of gold for $500, what has changed? Not the ounce of gold. Obviously, the paper money has grown less valuable because now instead of 25, it takes you 500. You need 20 times as many dollars, just to obtain the same piece of gold. So then gold goes to $1,000. Has the gold changed? No, it is still an ounce of gold, but now the money from $500 to $1,000 per ounce of gold, it's not the gold that is worth twice as much. It's the paper money which is valued at half as much.
Well, Michael, with the currency all over the world collapsing, it's not only the United States. All currency is under attack and collapsing. With that phenomena happening worldwide, it is impossible to put a value, any kind of monetary value, on an ounce of gold.
That's not necessarily true. It's impossible to put a paper currency price because the currency is devaluing so quickly. But you can go to the internet and do a search, and you'll discover that a Roman could, with 1 ounce of gold, go and get a brand new toga, sandals, and completely outfit himself from head to toe. During the American Revolution, you could get a jacket and pants and shoes and a hat. You could dress yourself from head to toe for an ounce of gold. Civil War, same thing. Well, right now, if we assume that gold is at $1,200, if you walk into any men's store, you could buy yourself a really decent suit, slacks, pair of shoes, a couple of ties and shirts. You can dress yourself from head to toe for an ounce of gold. So gold, if you trade gold, you will still get what you've always gotten because the commodity is the same. The difference is the paper money. And frankly, we need to think back to a time when people did trade gold and silver. The only reason we went to paper because paper was easier to carry. It's not as heavy as gold or silver. It doesn't make as much noise. You can fold it, put it in your pocket, and it just makes the exchange simpler. ultimately, the paper currency was a receipt. It was a gold receipt or a silver certificate that you could take to the bank and exchange anytime you wanted for a certain volume of the precious metal. Well, FDR took us off the gold standard. Nixon took us off the silver standard. We haven't had real money since, and now the Federal Reserve can print money literally out of thin air. And we wonder where we get a $1 trillion bailout, a $2 trillion stimulus package, a $3.4 trillion budget for 2011, as if anything with 12 zeros to the left of the decimal point can legitimately be called a budget. I mean, who are we trying to kid? If the three of us got together in my garage and printed, I don't know, $10,000 in $20 bills, we'd be able to rent a limo, we'd go out for surf and turf, a couple of bottles of champagne, maybe take in a really nice Broadway play. But as soon as we got caught, we'd be thrown in jail for counterfeiting.
Right.
Because $10,000 of phony money printed out of nothing. Well, the Federal Reserve has been counterfeiting our money since 1913. They have printed probably quadrillions of dollars in paper money. And Americans are wondering, you know, where their life savings has gone. It's been stolen by inflation.
That's right. And you know, Michael, it's funny you say that. And oh, by the way, folks, John King has joined the show. John, are you there?
Yes, I am, Joe. Hi, Mike.
Okay.
It's a pleasure to be talking with you again.
Hi, John. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
So one of the things that, you know, in researching all this, I found out that there's a big bubble forming in even the gold market, that that you have these gold bondsmen that are writing gold certificates for gold they're not even holding right now. So you don't even it's really a sick situation that we're seeing. I mean, very volatile, that can go at any minute. So knowing that, and knowing that a collapse could happen, and that when that does happen, and say it's coupled with food shortages and coupled with bad weather and the like, how valuable does gold and silver become, Michael? Because you can't eat it, you can't drink it, and you can't hunt with it. So what does it do for you at that point? Isn't it only as valuable as somebody? It's only as valuable as somebody's willing to make it or exchange for it, right?
That is correct. That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
But the gold and silver will always be traded for food and bullets and shelter, because people are confident that they will be able to trade it for food and bullets and shelter when they want it. Gold and silver are just a store. It's just a way to keep score in the economy. And your willingness to take paper dollars is based only on the assumption that you'll be able to spend your paper dollars someplace else. That's what circulation is all about. In fact, my dad frequently compliments my mother on how quickly she puts money back into circulation. But prior to the Constitution, after the Declaration of Independence, we were operating under the Articles of Confederation. We owed France and Spain money that they had loaned us for the American Revolution. All 13 colonies were obligated to this war debt. Well, the 13 colonies started printing money like it was going out of style, like it was a contest. Each colony is trying to print money faster than their next-door neighbor. And what that resulted in was hyperinflation. Nobody was willing to take the existing currency because they know that it was going to be worth less if they held on to it. So the reason for the Constitution, one of the primary reasons for the Constitution, was that, yay, we have freedom, we love liberty, but the economy sucks. And the Founding Fathers were sent to Philadelphia not to write the Constitution,